vanishing folklore and beliefs.
Stories of Old Greece and Rome, public domain reading, circa 1913. Pyramus and Thisbe. In far-off Babylon there dwelt a youth and maiden whose families lived in adjoining houses, with a party wall between the two estates. As the heads of these households were sworn enemies, in spite of their proximity, the wall was made so high that no one could climb over it, much less see what was on the other side. The maiden Thisbe, as she walked in her garden, often wondered who it was whose feet she could hear pacing up and down along the wall. And one day she was delighted to find a small crack in the masonry, which enabled her to peep into the adjoining garden. About this time, young Pyramus was planning some way to scale the wall when he too discovered the same chink, and when he peered cautiously through it, he found to his great joy that there was a sweet-faced maiden standing near, who hastened to assure him that she did not share in the family feud. This acquaintance soon ripened into friendship, and Pyramus and Thisbe spent many hours standing patiently by the chink in the wall, which was the only way in which they could exchange confidences. Soon they grew dissatisfied with this meager allowance of space in which to see each other, for by this time they had become so much in love that the tender whispers breathed through the broken wall only made them long to be together with this cruel barrier between them. So they planned to steal away from their watchful parents on a certain night and meet just outside the city walls at Ninu's tomb, where a great white mulberry tree would hide them with its protecting shadow. Accordingly, at the appointed hour, the trembling Thisbe wrapped herself closely in her veil and crept out of the house. Finding that she had come to the trysting place, she waited under the mulberry tree and idly watched the moonlight shining on a broad pool that lay close to Ninu's tomb. Suddenly, a lioness stole out of the bushes, her mouth bloody with the recent gorging of an oxen, and slunk down to the pool to drink. Thisbe, terrified at the sight of the creature's dripping jaws, fled into a nearby cave for refuge. But in her fright, she let fall her silken veil, and it dropped on the ground near the tree. The lioness, having drunk her fill, walked over to the tree and sniffed curiously at the bit of silk, then worried at it with her bloody teeth, as a dog plays with a rag. Just as the lioness departed, Pyramus came hurrying to the trysting place, and seeing Thisbe's torn and blood-stained veil and the print of the lioness's feet on the ground, he was beside himself with remorse and horror. Being certain that his beloved had been torn to pieces by some wild beast, he cursed his own carelessness in letting her to come first to a spot so full of dangers. Then he drew his sword, exclaiming that he no longer wished to live now, and that Thisbe was dead. He called upon the mulberry tree to bear witness to his oath of undying devotion, and then heroically upon his sword he fell, uttering the name of Thisbe with his last breath. As his blood gushed out upon the ground at the foot of the tree, the earth absorbed it so quickly that the white fruit of the tree turned a deep purple, and its juice became like drops of crimson blood. All this time Thisbe was hiding safely in the cave, and when she at length ventured out, she gazed fearfully around to be sure that no lioness was laying in wait to devour her. When she reached the spot where she hoped to meet her lover, what was her terror and dismay but to find him stretched dead upon the ground with her veil held close to his parted lips. Realizing what had happened, and that it was too late now to convince him of his terrible mistake, Thisbe knelt down beside him and vainly strove to bring him back to life. Finding this useless, she seized Pyramus's sword and plunged it into her heart, determined to die with him. As she sank forward on her lover's lifeless body, she prayed the gods to have pity on her love, and to allow her to be buried in the same tomb with her beloved Pyramus. The gods heard her dying prayer and answered it by making the hard hearts of parents relent so far that they consented to bury the lovers together. A costly tomb was erected over them as a fitting monument to these two unfortunates whom life so cruelly divided.